Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make this happy rainbow hat on a circular knitting machine. For this project, I'm using loops and threads Impeccable yarns in all the colors of the rainbow. I'm using the Sentro 48 needle knitting machine, but this would work on any hat-size circular knitting machine. All the supplies I'm using today will be linked in the description below, and please remember to subscribe to the channel for daily knitting tutorials and patterns. The first step is to cast on with the beige. To cast on, find the white needle, and then bring the beige behind and in front, behind and in front, behind and in front each of the needles, and go all the way around the loom. When you get to the last stitch, put the beige into the tensioner and use the medium tension. Switch your counter back to 0. Begin knitting. We're going to knit 64 rows in the beige. When you get to 64 rows, simply put your skein of yarn into the center of the machine. By force of habit, I by accident cut my beige in this video for the first row. Next up, we're going to knit 2 rows in the red. Cut a tail around 8 to 10 inches in your red and put it into the tensioner in the middle tension. Hold the yarn tails together closely as you begin your next row, making sure that all of your stitches catch. After you complete your 2 rows of red, switch back to the beige for another 2 rows. In between rows, simply put your beige in the middle of the machine. Next up is the orange. We're going to knit another 2 rows in the orange. As you continue switching colors, you'll want to stop a few times to tie some temporary knots in the yarn tails. We'll be finalizing these knots at the end when we seam up the hat, so they don't need to be perfect knots right now. Next, we're going to knit 2 more rows in the beige. Now we're going to knit 2 rows in the yellow. I'm stopping to tie a few more temporary knots. And back to beige for 2 more rows. When your work starts to touch the table, it's time to pull it up within the machine to keep it from getting tangled. Next up, 2 rows of green. Back to beige for 2 more rows. And now 2 rows in the blue. Back to beige for 2 rows. On to our last color, 2 rows of purple. After our purple row is complete, we're going to knit 24 more rows in the beige. When you get to 110 rows, your hat is complete and it's time to cast off. Cut a long tail with your beige, at least a couple of feet, and use a darning needle to pick up every stitch around the machine. Next up, remove the work from the machine and stretch it out. Before we assemble our hat, we need to turn the tube inside out and finalize all the knots. As you're making these knots, you can turn the work inside and out to check to make sure that you're tying it at the correct tension. When your knots are done, turn the tube right side out and begin to use the tail at the bottom of the hat to cinch up the bottom. Next, tie a few knots to secure the bottom of the hat. Next, pull the bottom of your hat through to meet the top of the hat. Begin to cinch the top of the hat, making sure to leave the tail from the bottom of the hat hanging on the outside of the hat. Tie a few knots with the yarn tail from the bottom and the yarn tail from the top to secure the bottom of the hat to the top. Next, weave in your ends. Weaving in the ends in a circular knitting machine tube is really easy because you just need to hide the yarn within the tube. As always, I like to add a knitting tag to my items. I'll link below to the shop where I order my tags. Now I just need to decide which pom-pom to use. I like to secure my pom-poms really tight to the top of the hat so they sit nice and close to the top. If you liked this video, please give it a like, comment below, and subscribe to the channel for daily knitting tutorials, patterns, and videos. If you make a project I've shown you here, please find me on Instagram to show me your work. And if you have a chance, check out some of my previous knitting tutorials linked here.